The viral confusion behind Trump's $2,000 dividend promise. In recent weeks, millions of Americans, especially seniors, have been swept into a storm of headlines, social media posts, and viral claims surrounding a supposed $2,000 Trump dividend check that many believe could arrive before Christmas. TikTok creators, Facebook groups, and even community forums have repeated this message with absolute confidence, leading many seniors to ask the same questions. Is this real? Is money truly coming? And if it is, who qualifies and when? As a financial analyst who has spent more than a decade examining benefit programs and federal proposals, I understand exactly why this topic has exploded. When a single headline suggests that every eligible American could receive $2,000 per person, not per household, the impact feels immediate and personal. A single senior living alone sees hope for breathing room. A family of four envisions an unexpected financial cushion. And during a holiday season marked by high prices, tight budgets, and rising anxiety, the possibility of relief spreads rapidly. But behind the excitement is also confusion. Seniors write in saying they want to believe the news, but they're unsure. Others feel hopeful but cautious, remembering previous moments when political promises didn't materialize. And many simply want clarity, something rare in a world where rumors travel faster than facts. That's why in this series, we're stepping back from the noise to examine what's actually happening. We'll break down what President Trump said, what the White House confirmed, what financial analysts are debating, and what seniors can realistically expect. My goal is not to hype the story or dismiss it, but to give you the calm, precise understanding you deserve, because financial decisions should be based on clarity, not uncertainty. What Trump actually announced and why it shocked the nation. To understand why this story became a national conversation, we need to go directly to the moment that started it all. President Trump's announcement on Truth Social. In a single post, just a few lines long, he introduced a concept that instantly captured the attention of low-income and middle-income Americans. He stated that he wants to send out a $2,000 dividend payment not as a one-time household benefit but per person. And he emphasized that the funding would come from what he described as massive tariff revenues flowing into the U.S. Treasury. Now, what made this message so explosive wasn't just the number, it was the framing. Trump didn't call it a stimulus check, which carries political weight and memories from past relief periods. Instead, he used the term dividend, a word typically associated with financial gain, profit sharing, and value returned to shareholders. In other words, he framed this as Americans receiving a share of the country's economic strength, not a bailout. For many seniors, that language felt empowering rather than demeaning. Then came the math that spread like wildfire. If the program were implemented as stated, a family of four could receive $8,000. A married couple could receive $4,000. A single senior living on Social Security or disability benefits could receive $2,000 directly. For households stretched thin by rising food prices, medical costs, and rent increases, the idea wasn't just appealing, it felt transformative. But the announcement also created immediate confusion. Trump's post was brief. It did not give a timeline, did not outline eligibility rules, and did not reference the formal steps required to turn such a proposal into law. That information vacuum created space for speculation, exaggeration, and viral misinformation. Some influencers claimed checks were already approved. Others suggested payments would be mailed within weeks. None of these claims match the actual facts. In this section, we've outlined precisely what Trump said and, just as importantly, what he did not say. In the next part, we'll examine the White House response, which added both clarity and new uncertainty. The White House response: hope, commitment, and uncertainty. After Trump's announcement sent shockwaves across social media, the nation turned to the next logical source for answers: the White House. Reporters wanted to know whether this proposal was merely political messaging or a genuine policy initiative moving toward implementation, and it didn't take long for Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to address the issue head-on. When asked directly whether Americans should expect these $2,000 dividend checks, her response surprised many analysts. She confirmed that yes, the administration is committed to making that happen. Those words alone created a surge of optimism among seniors and working families. It was one of the clearest public confirmations that the idea wasn't merely symbolic. It was something the current administration was actively exploring. But her statement didn't stop there, and this is where the nuance becomes crucial. Levitt added that there is no finalized structure, no defined rollout timeline, and no additional details ready for public release. In other words, the commitment is real, but the roadmap is not yet complete. For policymakers, that's normal. For the public, especially seniors who depend on predictable income, it creates confusion. Now let's interpret this in practical terms. When the White House says it is committed, that means the president's economic team has been directed to evaluate legal pathways, funding mechanisms, and administrative procedures. But it does not mean approval is guaranteed. It does not mean payments are scheduled. And it certainly does not mean money is on the way in the immediate future. This is the delicate balance that often gets lost in social media headlines: hope mixed with uncertainty. Seniors hear confirmation and understandably feel encouraged. Yet without a signed bill, a verified funding plan, or a legal framework, the proposal remains in an exploratory phase. This White House response is what shifted the conversation from rumor to possibility, but also what highlighted the complex steps still ahead. In the next part, we will break down the most important question for millions of seniors. Who would actually qualify under this proposal? Who would qualify? Understanding eligibility for the proposed $2,000 dividend. Now that we've laid the foundation for what was announced and how the White House responded, it's time to address the question that matters most to millions of Americans, especially seniors living on fixed incomes. Who actually qualifies for the proposed $2,000 dividend payment? Based on everything President Trump has publicly stated, the eligibility criteria revolve around one primary factor: income. Individuals earning $100,000 per year or less would be positioned to receive the full $2,000 payment. This threshold is notable because it mirrors previous income caps used during past federal relief programs, which helps analysts predict how the system might operate if it becomes law. But here's where the proposal becomes particularly important for seniors. Under Trump's framework, eligibility is not tied to employment. You do not need wages, you do not need a job, you do not need to be actively working in any capacity. Instead, the payment is tied strictly to your income level, meaning seniors living solely on Social Security, individuals receiving SSI or SSDI, veterans receiving VA compensation, low-income retirees with minimal or no taxable income, all appear to fall comfortably within the qualifying range. And perhaps the most impactful detail is this: the payment is structured per person, not per household. That means a married couple could receive $4,000. A household with dependent adults could see even more. Caregivers supporting disabled adult children may also benefit, depending on how dependents are defined in the final legislation. For many households, this structure represents more than temporary relief. It represents the potential to catch up on overdue bills, purchase essential medications, pay for utilities, or simply regain a sense of financial breathing room after years of rising costs. However, it's just as important to remember that these eligibility details come from Trump's proposal, not a finalized, legally binding policy. Until Congress approves a bill, the specifics remain subject to modification. In the next part, we turn to the next major concern on everyone's mind. Where would the money actually come from, and is the funding truly available? The funding question. Can tariff revenue really pay for $2,000 checks? As soon as discussions about the $2,000 dividend began circulating, one question rose to the surface almost immediately. Where would the money actually come from? After all, no federal program of this scale can move forward without a clearly defined funding source, and President Trump has pointed repeatedly to one answer: tariff revenue. To understand this claim, we need to simplify what tariff revenue really is. Tariffs are essentially fees charged on imported goods, everything from electronics and machinery to clothing and household products. When companies bring these items into the United States, they must pay a fee, and that fee flows directly to the U.S. Treasury. According to Trump's recent Truth Social post, these tariffs generated approximately $29 billion in a single week. That figure raised eyebrows nationwide. Now let's pair that revenue with the estimated cost of the dividend program. Financial analysts estimate that sending $2,000 to all qualifying Americans could require around $160 billion. If Trump's numbers are accurate and the country truly collects $29 billion per week, then mathematically it would take just 5 to 6 weeks of tariff income to fund the entire program. On paper, that looks not only feasible, but surprisingly efficient. However, as someone who has evaluated federal financial proposals for years, I must emphasize an important truth. Having potential revenue is not the same as having an approved plan. The Treasury cannot simply redirect tariff income into citizens' bank accounts without congressional approval, detailed legal structure, and administrative infrastructure. Even if the money exists, there must be formal authorization to use it for this purpose. This distinction is crucial because it separates possibility from guarantee. Trump's figures create excitement and open the door to real discussion, but they do not ensure payout. Funding may be available, but until policymakers lock in the legal mechanics, no checks can be issued. In the next part, we turn to the question seniors ask most often. If this program happens, when could the money realistically arrive? The timeline. When could Americans realistically receive the $2,000 dividend? With the proposal gaining momentum and millions of seniors wondering whether relief could arrive soon, the next question is perhaps the most emotionally charged. When would the money actually be sent out? Social media posts have suggested everything from next month to before Christmas, fueling hope but also creating widespread misunderstanding. So let's break down what's real, what's possible, and what's unlikely. President Trump himself has offered the clearest expectations so far. In his recent statements, he suggested that the checks would most likely go out around mid-2025, a time frame that points to June or July of next year. This is the first time a proposed date has been publicly attached to the initiative, and it provides valuable insight into both the scale of the project and the administrative hurdles involved. On the other hand, various analysts, commentators, and online influencers have floated the idea that payments could be sent earlier, perhaps even before Christmas. And while that scenario is understandably appealing, especially during a period of high grocery prices, holiday expenses, and rising utility bills, it is also the least realistic. Even if the government approved everything today, right now at this moment, setting up a nationwide payment system takes significant time. We saw this during the 2021 stimulus rollout. Even with existing IRS infrastructure, the first payments took roughly 2 weeks after the bill was signed. But that was during a period when systems were already active from earlier pandemic payments. Today, those systems are not in live operation. Additionally, legislative approval, distribution logistics, and verification mechanisms must all be finalized before a single check or direct deposit can be sent. With the holiday season already in full swing, the runway simply isn't long enough for implementation. So what is the honest expectation? Mid-2025 remains the most credible timeline. It's not the fast answer many hope for, but it's the realistic one based on process, precedent, and policy requirements. In the next part, we will explore an unexpected twist in this story, the emergence of bipartisan interest, which could significantly shape the program's future. Bipartisan interest, a rare moment of alignment in Washington. One of the most surprising developments surrounding the proposed $2,000 dividend isn't just the announcement itself, but the reaction it has generated across the political spectrum. In a time when Democrats and Republicans rarely agree on anything, the early signs of bipartisan interest have added an entirely new dimension to the conversation. The first wave of support came from a familiar name, Andrew Yang, the Democrat known for championing universal basic income during his presidential campaign. Yang's endorsement made sense. His entire platform was built on the idea that Americans benefit from direct cash payments. But what raised eyebrows was the broader reaction that followed. Representative Ro Khanna, another Democrat from California, previously proposed his own version of $2,000 payments for Americans earning under $100,000. While the motivations behind his earlier proposal differed from Trump's tariff-based approach, the outcome was strikingly similar, getting money directly into the hands of households who need it most. On the Republican side, support centers around a different narrative, using tariff revenue to provide relief without expanding federal debt. This framing appeals to conservative fiscal arguments, creating an unexpected bridge between economic philosophies that are often at odds. This emerging consensus does not mean legislation is guaranteed, but it does mean something politically significant. The idea will not be dismissed simply because one party introduced it. When both sides acknowledge that families are struggling, whether due to inflation, rising costs, or stagnant wages, the possibility of movement becomes much stronger. For seniors watching this unfold, bipartisan interest is more than political trivia. It represents momentum. It means lawmakers from both ends of the aisle recognize that millions of Americans, especially retirees on fixed incomes, need meaningful support, not next year, not someday, but now. Yet not everyone is enthusiastic. Concerns about inflation, spending habits, and economic ripple effects still linger, and that is where the debate shifts next. In the following part, we will examine one of the most contested questions in this proposal. Would $2,000 payments fuel inflation, or could they be structured to avoid it? Inflation concerns. Could $2,000 payments create economic pressure? Whenever direct payments are discussed at the national level, one concern appears almost immediately: inflation. Critics argue that sending money directly to millions of households could risk pushing prices even higher, much like some analysts claimed occurred during the pandemic-era stimulus programs. So, naturally, economists, policymakers, and even everyday Americans are asking, would this happen again? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was recently confronted with this very question. His response was nuanced, not a rejection, not an endorsement, but an acknowledgement that the situation is complex. He suggested that the economy in the coming year is expected to experience multiple shifts, and tariff-funded payments could be one of those shifts. This alone is notable because he did not dismiss the idea outright, nor did he characterize it as inflationary by default. Instead, Bassan offered a different perspective. Perhaps Americans could be persuaded to save rather than spend the payments immediately. This approach, in theory, would reduce inflationary pressure by limiting sudden spikes in consumer spending. He also referenced the concept of Trump accounts, a long-term savings initiative that would deposit $1,000 into accounts for babies born in the coming years. While forward-thinking, this idea is admittedly less relevant for seniors who are concerned about today's prices, not future savings plans. And that brings us to the heart of the issue. While inflation is a valid concern, it coexists with another equally urgent reality. Millions of households are stretched to their breaking point. Groceries, medication, utilities, and rent have all increased dramatically. For seniors choosing between essentials, the possibility of inflation months from now is a distant worry compared to the immediate pressure of today's bills. Financial relief cannot solve inflation, but it can provide breathing room. Policymakers face a difficult balancing act, ensuring the economy remains stable while addressing the very real hardships Americans face right now. In the next part, we'll shift from theory to practicality and discuss what seniors should be doing now, long before any checks are approved or distributed. What seniors should do now, practical steps before any payments become real. At this stage in the discussion, it's important to shift from political forecasting to practical guidance, because while the possibility of a $2,000 dividend has captured national attention, the reality is that nothing is finalized yet. And for seniors living on fixed incomes, this is the moment when financial decisions must be guided by caution, not hope. The first and most essential piece of advice is this: do not rely on money that is not in your account yet. Hope can be powerful, especially when bills are piling up, medical costs are rising, and the holidays add financial pressure. But planning around hypothetical funds is risky. Too many seniors in the past have made commitments or spent money in anticipation of promised checks, only to discover the program was delayed or never approved. Second, now is the time to ensure that all your IRS information is up to date. If the program is eventually approved, payments would almost certainly follow the same distribution paths used for previous stimulus checks. That means direct deposit would be the fastest method. So if you've changed banks, moved to a new address, or haven't filed your 2023 taxes, those updates matter. Even seniors who rely solely on Social Security sometimes need to file simple returns to stay active in the system. Third, and this is critical, be on high alert for scams. Every time the government discusses financial relief, scammers target seniors with fake calls, emails, and text messages pretending to represent the IRS or Social Security Administration. They may ask for bank account information, Social Security numbers, or even upfront payments to release your check. None of these are legitimate. The IRS will never call you, email you, or request payment for benefits. If something feels off, hang up, delete the message, protect yourself. Finally, don't wait for future relief if you need help right now. Programs like SNAP, LIHEAP, state-level rebates, and prescription assistance are already available. These resources have helped millions of older adults stay fed, warm, and healthy during difficult times. You deserve support today, not someday. In the next and final part, we'll step back and bring the entire picture together with a clear summary of what's confirmed, what's uncertain, and what seniors can expect moving forward. The final verdict: what we know, what we don't, and what comes next. Now that we've walked through every major component of the discussion, from Trump's initial announcement to the White House's response, from funding possibilities to eligibility rules, It's time to bring everything into a clear, grounded conclusion. Because for seniors making decisions in real time, clarity is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Here's what we know for certain. President Trump has publicly proposed a $2,000 dividend payment for low and middle income Americans, explicitly stating that tariff revenue could fund the program. The White House has reinforced that it is committed to making this happen, and senior officials have confirmed they are actively exploring legal and administrative pathways. If implemented under the income threshold discussed, $100,000 or below, millions of seniors on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits would almost certainly qualify. We also know that bipartisan interest exists, which is rare in today's political climate. Lawmakers from both sides have acknowledged the financial strain Americans face and the potential value of direct relief. That momentum matters. But here's what remains uncertain. There is no finalized bill, no official structure, no payment schedule, and no signed legislation. Analysts have speculated about timing, but the only realistic estimate comes from Trump himself, mid-2025, depending on congressional action. Christmas payouts, while often repeated online, are not grounded in any official documentation. And finally, here's what seniors should keep in mind moving forward. Hope is powerful, especially during difficult economic times, but it should never replace caution. Continue managing your budget based on the income you have today. Update your IRS information, stay alert for scams, and never hesitate to apply for the assistance programs that already exist to support you right now. As this proposal evolves, one truth remains constant. You deserve clarity, honesty, and reliable information. The headlines may shift and rumors may swirl, but my goal is to guide you through each update calmly and accurately, ensuring you're never left in the dark. Whatever happens next, you're not navigating it alone. Together, we'll continue to monitor each development, one update at a time, one fact at a time, with stability, transparency, and your well-being at the center of every conversation.